Everyone, we have author Yvonne Johnson here, and she's going to tell us a little bit about herself.
Okay, my name is Yvonne Johnson. I'm the co-author of a book, The Ride of Pride. It's a children's book that focuses on Black inventors and also parent involvement. And also my recent book that I wrote myself is Manifested Dreams. And it takes a look at a family, finding their history that traces back to 150 years, but it highlights several historical events, but each character tells their own personal experience of different historical events.
Okay.
A graduate of Clark Atlanta University. Uh, I was a history major at Clark, so that kind of inspired me to write about historical events.
Okay, that was one of my questions too. Like, what inspired you to write your book? How long have you been writing?
So our first book was released in 2007, and then we re-released in 2017, The Ride of Pride. And this Manifested Dreams was recently released in July of this year.
And are you self-published?
The first book is not. We went with a publisher. The second book, I decided to self-publish.
Okay. And do you think it was easier being that you went with publishing a publisher first and then going by yourself the second time? Was the road a little easier for you?
No, my personal experience, I was highly disappointed with our publishing company. Um, all the marketing exposure I did myself, just putting myself out there. They made all these promises, but they did not follow through. And then every time you turn around, hey, we can help you do this. If it's only $2,000, but I did that for free, So due to my frustration, that's why I decided to self-publish. And I did a lot of research, and I'm pleased with self-publishing because you actually see the profit of your work compared to, we sold a decent amount of books with the first one, and I've made more money in this small amount of time with my book compared to the book that we use a publisher for.
Okay. And have you experienced writer's block?
Yes, because honestly, I started Manifested Dreams in 2017, and I would write a little and put it down. And then once COVID came, I said, I don't have any choice but to write. So I decided to finish it. And oddly enough, when I picked the information back up, I was like, some of this information is history repeating itself. Because I mentioned about the riots or protests of Rodney King, voter suppression. So I was like, I feel people really need to know that unless you know your history, you're definitely going to repeat it. So.
Okay. Now tell us about your books.
Okay, the first one is The Ride of Pride. It's actually a family project. My daddy was the illustrator. My sister is the co-author. And we got the idea when I was a teacher. I was a special ed teacher. And I would ask my students during Black History Month to research different Black inventors. And then I would ask them to either draw or make the invention, and we would post it outside our room. So unknown to me, my sister was a chemistry major, and she would ask her students to actually create an invention. So one day we were just talking about, some of the activities we would do with our students. And my dad was like, well, y'all need to write a book to tell people about this information. So we also incorporated parent involvement. So in the story, the parents took an active role with their student to try to motivate him to do his homework assignments. So they actually took him on a ride throughout the city, just pointing out different inventions that were created by Black inventors. So that's the reason for the title, The Ride of Pride.
Okay. And that's the reason for the cover as well. It goes
yeah.
Okay. Nice.
And my book is Manifested Dreams. And the reason why I titled it Manifested Dreams is because, like I said, the family discovered their history all the way back to 150 years. So it started off on a slave plantation, and they dreamed about what would life be if things were different. So the first character, of course, was not able to see her dreams, but it was manifested throughout her lineage, through her children. And like I said, it discussed the Reconstruction era, and it talks about the Rodney King riots, Harlem Renaissance, integration of schools, but I focused on integration of schools in Memphis, which was different from many of the integration of schools because they used first graders to integrate schools.
Okay.
So I imagine what would it be like for a first grader experiencing, I have to go through that experience. So that's Manifested Dreams.
Okay. And are you working on a third book?
I had an idea for a third book, but it's a religious book, so I don't know. Based on the title in my head, I don't know how people would perceive it. So I have to do additional research. But
okay, it's a work in progress.
Yes, a work in progress.
Okay, tell us your social media.
You can find me the Manifested Dreams on Instagram, the Rider Pride on Instagram and Facebook, and also you can find me on Facebook for Manifested Dreams.
Okay, and is there anything else that you would like to tell us about your books?
Well, I can tell you my other website. You can find both books on www.theriderpride1.com, and you can also purchase the books on those sites, and you'll save a lot on postage compared to with Amazon. So
okay, so it's cheaper through the website.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Anything else that you would like to tell us about your books?
Well, I feel both books are very beneficial. I've noticed with especially the first book, it was a lot of inventions several adults weren't aware of, and also information in Manifested Dreams several adults may not be aware of because of during the Reconstruction period, which is right after slavery. I don't know if people realize we did have elected officials in those offices, and based on voter suppression, that was because a lot of people just think, oh, after slavery, we didn't have the right to vote until 1965, which is not true. And I was just amazed at how many elected officials we had during the Reconstruction period. But of course, they felt like they didn't allow slaves to transition back to society. So of course, they invented different ways to suppress our vote or intimidate our vote.
Well, now, are you a reader as well?
Yes, I read every night before I go to bed. It's a way to calm me down, after a hard day's work. But most of what I'm reading now is, spiritual books because you need comfort during these times. So yeah, I'm a reader. But oddly enough, that's why I tell people it's funny that I started writing because in high school, I did not like to read. I didn't start reading till I got into college, and they was like, you have to read a book of your choice and write about it. So I couldn't just sit in the classroom and listen to the discussion to take the test or buy the clip notes to take the test. I actually had to read. So my first book that I fell in love with was the autobiography of Malcolm X. So and after that, the rest is history.
Now, are you a e-reader? Do you like the actual book or do you do audiobooks?
I like the actual book. Some audiobooks I do listen to audiobooks, like if I want to reinforce it, I feel like it's something I really need to get in my system, I'll read it. And then I listen to the audiobook if I have, a long drive. And I kind of don't like the ebooks, but I do read the ebooks if that's the only way that book is available. But I do all three.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me.